welcome to the video. My name is Orion, and check this out. I have some real big news coming out for this week's market. And as you can see in routers, they talked about how Iran rejected the deal with the United States. So what does that say about oil and the SPY? What's going to happen to the market this week? Well, I have just all the information for you. So let's get to it. Okay, so right here I have the light crude oil futures. So basically it's like WTI. This is for the oil market. I want to show you some areas. I want to show you the area where oil got rejected, right? And this area as well, oil got rejected. And what is it saying that it's going now? But before I get into that information, notice how before that happened, right, oil was down here, and then we had this sudden spike, and then we had some consolidation, another spike, and then we kind of ran into a support area. Now, if you haven't kept up with the news, there's been a lot of escalation going on overseas, especially in the Strait of Hormuz. People can say that, you know what, there's like a market crash. It is a market crash, but at the same time, it's more of like a pullback. Because if you noticed in the basically the total stock market, which is the SPY right here, we've been coming up for a good minute, especially since, Liberation Day, which is the tariffs. Now, you see this area right here, this is where we started, and this is where we kept on going. And basically, that, as you can see, is the pullback. We had the AI disruption, right? Then we had basically the beginning days of, the strikes going on overseas that caused the market to fall a little bit more. And then we had the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, where ships weren't passing by, and that caused a supply and demand issue. And that's where we're at with the market. Now, I'm gonna take this away, as you can see, and we're going back to the CL1, which is the oil futures. Now, as you can see here, I labeled everything where you can see more of an idea where we're going, right? Now, remember how I mentioned we had a rejection, then we had a support in this area, and we had another bounce in this area as well from the support line. And it kind of tells us where this market's going. Now, in one of my tweets on X, I talked about it looked like a buy the dip moment on the oil markets, but we had to wait for a couple of days just to see what their action is overseas. And what do you know? We opened up, especially after the weekend, with this. That right there tells us that there's a rejection of the deal, and they weren't gonna allow the Strait of Hormuz to open. That's just what Iran's doing right now. That puts us in a position where, okay, if this deal was rejected, right, we're basically back to square one. But we have to wait a couple more days what direction we're going with in this market. And I know if you're a trader, you've been stuck in areas, especially in the SPY right here, we're back at SPY, you've probably been stuck all through this area right here. All of this is where it just wasn't that great of trading. The market had a lot of lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and lower highs, and that basically took you a run for your money. Now we're in a place where we had this knee-jerk reaction right here in this area, and that is basically the cause of like a peace deal. They talked about the ceasefire and then the peace deal, and that's where we're at right now. Okay, so here I have the SPY and the light crude oil futures on the 4-hour chart, and as you can see, exactly, things look very different here. You see the support and resistance on the futures for oil. You see the SPY showing its nice little rally going up, but where is this market going? Is this the area in SPY, as you can see, where it looks like basically a relief rally? Things were getting tense. We know the market wasn't going up, and this was like a knee-jerk reaction based off the news that came out. Now, with oil, you can also see that we have basically a crash in the oil market. Why? And that comes with the idea of good news. The way you trade this market, if you haven't noticed, that it is a news driven market. The way you want to trade this is de-escalation, right? That means ceasefire, peace deal, opening of Strait of Hormuz. That is hope for the market. That is going to make the SPY rally more because it's good news. And that's going to make the oil market fall. Escalation news. That's where things get intense. As you can see, the rejection of the peace deal, right? And then we have the Strait of Hormuz not opening and war continues. The SPY is going to fall and the oil market will go up. It's bringing uncertainty in the market, and that's where we don't want to be. So let's jump into the levels now. So here I have the SPY on the 4-hour chart. And if you notice, I have some levels here. We have the first area being at 660. That one was our level of support, broke that one. Then we had another level of support, which was, well, we had a resistance level at 673, which we also found a bounce, and that is basically considered a new level of support. We have a new level, and that's basically 683. 683 is going to be the level that we need to reach in order for us to break out and start claiming new sky territories, you know, all-time highs. And the issue with this is that I don't see it anytime soon. What I do see happening is more of this. Let's say, for example, let me move these out the way. Let's say that the market is an official rally, right? We have the rally continuing going up, and we break the area of basically the area of resistance and come back down on the area of support, and then we consolidate. We can have that scenario play out in this war, or we can also have this scenario where the market comes up and actually rejects the 680 and comes back down to 666 or 660 level and basically consolidates right there and continues going down depending on what's going on overseas. There's two scenarios that can happen. It's not promised that these can be the case, but if the oil market opened up high, as you can see, we go back to the CO1 futures. If the market opened up on a gap up, that was because of the rejection of the deal. Now we're going in this direction and hoping that we can come to basically cooperation. You know, Iran can cooperate with the US and say, you know what, let's open up the Strait of Hormuz and start going to some type of deal. That's the best case scenario because it puts everything at ease. Now the oil market is affected. Don't think that just for a second, because this has happened, we're gonna go back to normal. Like they mentioned, and overseas, they've hit some refineries that they say we won't be able to be back to normal until 3 to 5 years from now. What is that going to say about the oil market in the near future? I think we can start seeing a climb. Gas prices, this is not a place for gas prices. It's more of just, you know, technical analysis on the futures chart. But I do see things getting a little bit more expensive. You know, it takes basically fuel to go out there and grow crops, the tractors and all that. So I would assume that these prices are going to get passed on to the consumer because it's the oil market. Everything runs on oil, or everything is needed to create something with oil. And that's where we're at. But as a trader, I would be very careful trading this market. Understand that it is a news driven market. We are in a place where we do need to play our levels correctly and be in and out. Focus on the Strait of Hormuz. Focus on the peace deal for this week coming. It's Sunday, April 12th. So trade every plan that you have with a tight stop loss and focus on the bigger picture. If you don't need to make a trade that day, if there's no news that day, the market's just not going to move. There's going to be a lot of consolidation. We don't know what direction it'll go. It's all based off the news. So stay updated with routers, CNBC, any news source that you feel is credible. Now, with that being said, I'm going to leave you to the end of this video and just show you that over the long term, right? Because people can say like, oh, this is a big issue, the market's gonna crash and stuff like that. If you just step back and look at the stock market overall, we have come from, in the past, the 2008 crash. We had 2020 was basically COVID. Then we had the Ukraine war. We had all these dips. As you can see, this was basically a crash in itself. That was actually a bear market. I've traded 2022 and that was a tough market to trade. We've also traded this market here and recovered, traded this market here and recovered. The stock market has continuously gone up. So don't lose hope. Just know that right now it's not the best time to trade the plan that you thought you had. Right now it's basically being safe. If there's no trade that's needed to do, sit on your hands, don't take that trade. Think long term, because a lot of stocks are going to be on discount. And what I mean by that, stocks are coming from all-time highs. Now they're at their all-time lows, and especially 52-week low. So take advantage of all the stocks that are on discount. And with that being said, trade responsibly and invest your money the way you want to. I will see you on the next video. And if this provided value and direction with your trading plan, give me a like and a subscribe, and put on the comment, what do you think this scenario will play out in the next couple of weeks? I want to know what you think. So with that being said, I'll see you then.